As we are focusing on wood burning a stencil design, first you need to make a stencil. The easiest way to do this is just to take your school Chromebook and rotate the display. Put a piece of paper over it. You can't really see this part well, but you can then just trace the lines in the image. It doesn't have to be too exact, as you're going to make mistakes while burning it into wood. It is inevitable no matter what skill level you are. And you should really just have fun with it, as it is an art form. And you shouldn't take it too seriously, it's just an opportunity to enjoy yourself. And enjoy the nice scent of burning wood. There are many things that can cause such a burning smell, but some are more legal than others. And when tracing the outline, you want to use as few strokes as possible, as that decreases the chance of a significant movement, which will make the final product look better. But again, as long as you know roughly what the shape should be, you will be fine. And that is the rough outline done. Next, you are going to want to cut out a square around the image. You don't want to cut too closely. And this particular image has a few fine details that you aren't likely to get too well in the actual final product. So again, just have fun with it. It should be something more or less like this. Now you want to bring your image to whatever wood you're working on. I happen to be using a large piece of scrap plywood, but as long as the image fits on it, it should be fine. Next, you're going to want to use tape to secure it. I'm using just painter's tape because it is easier to remove than most other tapes. Now you don't have to use too much, as long as it keeps the piece of paper you're using secure. And the best part about wood burning is you could actually draw onto whatever piece of wood you're burning and you wouldn't have to worry, or use transfer paper if you're fancy, but you really don't need that. At this point, you should turn on or have already had your wood burner heating, and if it's a fancy model, it will have an adjustable temperature. I don't really care about that. I turn it all the way up so it burns faster and gets to temperature ready. So now you wait for it to heat up. You'll know when the wood burner is hot enough when you can quickly and easily make a long dark streak in the wood. And now it's as simple as retracing what you've already outlined. And try to stick to the outer edges first, as that will give you the best chance of actually following the lines you want to. And don't apply too much pressure and keep it at a consistent pace. Otherwise your lines will be an absolute mess. You should be applying a decent bit more pressure than you would with a pencil, but not more than you would apply to a mechanical pencil, which would cause the lead to break. It is a fine line of what is a good amount of pressure and what isn't, and you'll just get that as you practice. And I do not have that much practice with this, but again, this is just something to do for fun. and it doesn't particularly matter how good the product is. Your grip on the burner should be roughly similar to a pencil, but you have to play around with it and find what's comfortable for you. That line wasn't particularly good up until the latter half of it, but not much you can do about that. That is one of the annoying parts of this as an art form, is that anything you do is completely permanent. There is absolutely no way to unburn wood that I know of. There may be some dark magic rituals you can perform, but at that point you can be doing much cooler things with your life if you're able to do those. Not speaking from experience there, Spencer. Normally while I'm doing this I'd have music playing, but I figured it'd be much simpler to just have that be done in post. My original thought for what to do for this project was to demonstrate how to edit videos, but I'd need something to edit, and at that point I'd already have to be doing something else, so it didn't make much sense. Also, feel free to rotate the workpiece whenever you need to. There isn't much you need in terms of safety equipment, just know where the plug is at all times in case something starts going wrong, and don't leave the wood burner unattended, as obviously this would be able to start a house fire. Sometimes that's what you want, but again, legally that's kind of questionable. Only kinda, though. Anyways, if you want to learn how to make napalm, all you need is acetone and some styrofoam, and you have a goopy, flammable mixture, which cannot be easily extinguished. And if you want to make my lawyer has just informed me that I need to stop talking immediately. So, I will not be finishing that sentence. Sometimes the smoke will get into your eyes and that stings a bit, but again, nothing much you can really do about that besides wear eye protection, which is a recommended activity, but it gets in your way sometimes, so I choose not to, as it's not too much of a safety hazard. It's also probably a good idea not to breathe too much of this in at any one time, as it does contain the marker, which is not the healthiest thing to inhale. It's not particularly unhealthy, it's just prolonged exposures can cause adverse health effects. And that is how I think Joey became Joey. Only Mr. Young is going to get that joke. So don't worry if your lines aren't too uniform, as you can always trace back over them at a later time. As you can see right there, I did not hold this down long enough, and the wood is not sufficiently burnt. But I can fix that later, so it's all good. Now all that should be left is touching up the details. I'd recommend having just a random pin with you so you can peel the paper that gets burnt to the wood off more easily. So you should be left with something mostly like this, and now all you have left to do is smooth out all the lines. This is honestly probably the most difficult stage, as this is when you have to really be consistent. So now if you have your lines as detailed and as thick as you want them, if you want an extra challenge, which this is probably going to go wrong, so I'm recording this as a separate video, you can either look at your image or cut out a reference like this, which will be off screen, but you can try to shade in the image if you would like. I'd recommend using the flat and just gently pulling it across. Or if you want to add some depth, you can push it under the start of the wood grain to get a little bit of an indentation if you want to add some depth as well as some color. And then apply pressure to flatten it out. This may not always be the best thing for whatever design you're drawing, but it's always a good idea to mess around with things like this. And the last thing you can do if you want to add just a little bit more detail is turn your burner to a medium heat and just push with a little bit of pressure to scrape off some of the wood to get a little bit of the texture. Remember, you don't really want to be burning it too much, but just enough to add a little bit of detail. Now that you're done touching up your texture, you are going to want to go over the lines one more time, because they do start to blend in. And I personally like on the parts that you've textured to not really burn but more scrape the outline, so you get more of the lighter color of the wood, which gives a better contrast to the darker burnt color. But you do want to be careful that you don't scrape any new paths into the wood. And with that done, you should end up with something that looks alright. You can always experiment with different styles and how much you actually shade things in, and what you choose to shade in and don't. But that's the basics of burning from a stencil. Traced out pattern with mild shading to this.